Let me just tidy up my hair a little. Oh, you can read, sorry.
Okay, Mayor, we're live. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Buchanan special meeting and workshop meeting of March 23rd, 2021. This meeting is being conducted in accordance with Executive Order 202.1. And also you can hear it live on Facebook on the Village of Buchanan page. Normally, just so you know, normally we do not take any votes at a workshop meeting, but because we have to vote on the Police Reform Committee before April 1st, we'll be voting on that this evening, and that has been advertised. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is the Police Reform Committee. Do we have the chairman, Jeremy Basso, online?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Hello, Madam Mayor.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you? Would you like to just give us a review of what you and your team have been working on?
Sure. So thank you all for having me this evening and for the opportunity to work with the chief as well as the members of the village. Dwayne Jackson as well gave his time to assist us through the process, as did Marcus Serrano. So I'd like to thank, and Nick Zachary did also. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time, patience, and guidance throughout this process. So we, as a committee, we spent some time reviewing a large number of policies and procedures that the Buchanan Police Department has had in place, and sort of went over the items that seemed to be of high value and worthwhile concern to address, to explore, to find ways to allow them to have better interaction with the community, as well as to make sure that the community has an easy time interacting with the Village Police Department. We made a series of recommendations. We also worked with a gentleman from the Legal Aid Society, Harvey Loeb, who was also helping provide guidance to ensure that the committee was reviewing those types of policies that were deemed most appropriate by different governing agencies and bodies throughout the state. Some of the recommendations were as simple as reviewing websites and having the recommendation to create a standalone site specifically about the police, and create an email and an email address and a sort of a tip line. There was suggestions to implement a better database system for records management and retrieval management, so that it was easier to get a better understanding of the types of interactions that the police were having with the community. And the current methodology and systems used to be able to extract the data is fairly lacking. So there was some really awesome opportunity as well. We learned a lot about what the Village Police Department does in terms of continuing education and making sure that they're abreast of the most recent processes and procedures. And before this was even a requirement or something that was being talked about, it was nice to see that many of these policies had been updated in 2020, both the first and second half of 2020, not because they had to, but because it's sort of what they do. And in our conversations, it really seems that community policing is what this entire Police Reform Commission was seeking to help different police agencies implement. And frankly, we're really fortunate in the village that that's exactly how our police department operates today. It's a community police department, and their record stands on its own 2 feet. There's been no complaints against them, and we were really happy to hear that they have such a great standing within the community.
Thank you, Jeremy. And Chief, I see you're on now. Chief Farrell, would you like to add anything to that?
Just that, yeah, we just, that I wanted to thank them for all the hard work that they put in. They spent a lot of time, asked a lot of questions, were not afraid to get information, and they definitely reached out for what they needed. So I appreciate that, and I really just condemn the hard work they did.
All right, thank you. I would like to mention Jeremy was the chairman. The Chief Farrell was part of that. And also the other members, Awilda Baez, Daniel Cheladuri, Diane Tangen, Dwayne Jackson was the liaison for the village board, Harry Loeb, I know Jeremy mentioned him, James Ferguson, James Lent, Linda Wiley, Nick Zachary, Paul Matthews, and Stephen Ronco. Those were the original members to this committee. I want to thank everyone for their hard work. And I know this had to be done in a short amount of time. And you met the April 1st deadline. And we very much appreciate that for your input and everything that you've done with the committee. And we are going to be sending you out all a certificate of appreciation for your hard work and what you've done. So much appreciated from the Village of Buchanan.
Well, we were all very happy to have the opportunity to participate. And I think that the village has a very viable document to review. And I hope the public has taken the time to review it. I think there's some pretty important items that were that are in this recommendation. And I think that the village board is in a very great position to be able to comfortably accept this document and vote accordingly. I think that there's really great stuff, including, support for mental health purposes for the officers and things of that nature as well. So it's fairly comprehensive. And I think that I don't want the interpretation to be that it was done in a short period of time to make it rushed. I think the committee members put in a lot of time and effort to make sure that it was thorough and something that the village would be comfortable adopting.
Yeah, no, I think when there had to be extra time put in, everybody stepped up to do that. But I think another benefit of this, not only was the reform, but there were different people in the village that you didn't know that you got to know each other. And I think that was a great part of that, getting to know other residents in the village and working together.
It was great. It really was a great opportunity to work together with people that I wouldn't have otherwise probably had an opportunity to get to know, much less work hand in hand with. There was a lot of different perspectives that were brought to the table. And it was fun. I'm glad that we were able to do it.
Good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jeremy. And any other board members, does anyone have any questions about this report?
I just like to compliment them on how well they worked together, and it was a good cross section of the village. And Jeremy, very, very good in keeping everything going, and it was a great report. I agree totally. I think it's a great example of when everybody works together, we can really get a document, and also for the relationship between the police and our community. I know it's a great relationship always because we have a small community, but this further cements that relationship, and everybody knows how to talk to each other, which I think is the most important thing. So thanks a lot, Jeremy, for your leadership there, and we appreciate it from the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, Jeremy, I get named and say thank you, but the real driving force here, in all sincerity, was Awilda Baez. Not to discredit anyone on the committee. We all did a great job, but Awilda was the real force here. She made sure that all of the agenda items were spelled out in advance. She made sure that the minutes were prepared on time. She was the one who actually did all of the typing and a lot of the organization on the draft plan. So I think the real hero here is Awilda, and I'm really lucky that she stepped up, played the secretary role for this. And she did a really great job.
Awilda, she's on Awilda. Turn on your video just so everybody see who you are. If you could, you're on the main screen. I don't think everybody wants the other board members. They're they're on as well. If you want to take your video on so people can see who you are, if you wish to. Thank you, Harvey.
Wilda just texted and said her mic is down.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Harvey, for working with this group. Much appreciated.
Let me just add to the fact that
There's a Wilda. Hey, Wilda.
Dwayne, I think you were speaking next.
yeah, no, I welcome Wilda and everyone else. No, when Madam Mayor, when you gave me this assignment to put the committee together, and I sat back, and Marcus and I and the chief were talking about how we wanted to format it, how many people we wanted on the panel. And, you know, the chief, having looked at some of the things that were done on other panels across the county, we kind of felt that certainly there were a lot of things that we really weren't overly concerned with, in just in terms of policing, because indeed, A, we have a small force, and B, a lot of the things, the communityism that the chief, when he was a sergeant, brought to the table, and it all gelled right. It just really did, because as Jeremy stated, we were different people from different backgrounds, living all in the same village. And Madam Mayor, I know you've spoken about how we could kind of duplicate that going forward in terms of just the communityism in the village at large. And again, my hat off to Jeremy, to the chief, and all the members of the board, and the consultant work that Harvey did in bringing in some vital points that we might not have necessarily zeroed in on. And the finished product is absolutely excellent, and definitely brings forth what a great village we live in, and what a great police force we have. So I really appreciate everybody's involvement, and was very happy to work with everyone on this project.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good job. Good comments.
Thank you, Dwayne. And thanks for your help through this process as well. I appreciate it, as does the rest of the committee.
Anyone else before anyone else?
Just briefly. I obviously want to thank everybody. I'm very impressed with the talent and the effort and the commitment. I want to thank Dwayne, because I was kind of joining with him as a liaison to this. Got sick at one point, and I just kind of faded off the scene, being busy with other things, and knowing that Dwayne was involved enabled me to do that. And I want to thank Dwayne for his efforts on this, and of course everybody else, Jeremy, Awilda, and the whole team there. And being that we have smart people who got involved, stay involved. We have some people there that I would love to see stay involved with various village functions. You never know when there's when there's a planning or zoning board opening, and so people like this are people it's a talent pool to pull from. So thanks, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Hey, any other comments before we vote on this to approve it? No? Okay. So on a motion to approve the Police Reform Committee recommendations.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Approved. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, guys.
Great job.
Well done, fellas.
Excellent.
So we're going to move on now to our workshop discussions. Tonight, we're fortunate to have our auditors from P.F. O'Connor's, Chris Koff and Melissa Zott. They're going to do a presentation of our audit, our most recent audit. So Chris and Melissa.
Mayor, thank you very much. I'd like to thank the board for taking the time to let us present tonight. I know you have a busy schedule. Melissa was the senior manager on the job. She was there every day. And she's put together a little PowerPoint, which she's now sharing with you. And we'll go through those points. But as Marcus said originally, if we need to, he has the financial statements and he can share those if there's any particular section that you'd like to discuss. All right, Melissa.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So today we're just going to go over some required communications. We'll talk about high level, the 2020 general fund, your revenues, expenditures compared to budget. We'll isolate the major revenues for the current year and also provide a 5-year history. We'll do the same thing on your expenditure side. We'll go over the general fund balance analysis and then provide a 5-year history. We'll also provide the other funds, fund balances. And then we've provided the outstanding bonds and installment purchase debt as of May 31st. So we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. As a part of those standards, we are required to communicate with you management's responsibility. So management's responsibility includes selecting and implementing accounting policies, presenting the financial statements in accordance with US GAAP, establishing and maintaining effective internal control, as well as monitoring that internal control, ensuring that the village is in compliance with laws, regulations, and other provisions of contracts and agreements, providing all the financial records and any information that we as your auditors request, as well as setting proper tone at the top. In addition to management having responsibility, we as your auditors also have responsibility. We provide deliverables to the village that includes your independent auditor's report, the required communications to those charged with governance, as well as a management letter. I would like to say that we have issued an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion, and this is the best opinion that you could receive. Also included in our responsibilities is to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that may have been noted during the audit. No such instances were noted. We also did not encounter any difficulties in conducting our audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements and no disagreements with management.
And before we leave this page, for those of you who might compare last year's report to this year's report, there is a little change in our opinion letter. We did have to add what's known as an emphasis of a matter. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to add a footnote to all municipal reports that indicate the impact that the virus might have had on certain sensitive revenues, for example, sales tax, mortgage tax, and other fees that municipalities do collect. So it doesn't affect our opinion, but if you are reading it, it is our standard disclosure due to the pandemic.
Thanks.
Sorry, Melissa.
Thank you. So on this slide, this is going to be a high-level discussion of the general fund, your original, final, and your actual. So first, I just want to discuss the layout of this slide. The first column, you have your original budget, which represents the budget approved by the voters. Your second column is your final budget, which would include any budget modifications or transfers made during the year. Your third column is your actual activity during the year. And then the fourth column, the last column, it represents the difference between your final budget and your actual. So at May 31st, 2020, the total revenues came in at $6.5 million, which was about $130,000 over your budget, your final budget of 6.4. Your total expenditures came in at $5.7 million, which was about $880,000 under your expenditure budget of $6.6 million. The village's other financing sources and uses, which is made up of the net effect of your transfers in and out between your funds, this netted as a transfer out of $424,000. It was expected to net a transfer in of $219,000. As you can see by the second to the bottom line, the fund balance beginning, the village did not anticipate using any fund balance. But instead, during the year, the village added $370,000 to fund balance. When you add that to your beginning fund balance of $318,000, the general fund ended with $689,000. Later in the slide, we will go over the breakout, the categories of those reserves.
So the bottom line to that is that when you put your budget together, it was adopted, you didn't anticipate the use of any fund balance. So, if in a perfect world, you would have broke even, but you did actually $370,000 better than budget. So not only did you not utilize fund balance, you actually increased it. In fact, you almost doubled it. So you had a very good budgetary year.
So what was the cause of the increase in fund balance? On this slide, we focus on your major revenues for 2020. The columns here are same as the previous slide, except we add a 2019 column for you to review. We've isolated the major revenues here. You can see at the bottom, it's about 94% of your total revenues and other financing sources. If we go through, the first line is your real property tax, which came in approximate to budget. The next line is your payments in lieu of taxes, which would represent your Indian Point pilot payment. The next line is your sales tax. That's the non-property tax distribution from the county. So it came in $75,000 over budget and also over prior year. This was mainly due to the 1% increase in the county's sales tax. If we look at the next line, the park and recreation charges, that came in about $59,000 under the anticipated budget of $155,000, and then also under last year of about $110,000. This was mainly due to a decrease in the day camp fees, which could be caused due to the pandemic. The other line that I do want to point out is the transfers in from the water fund. It was originally budgeted at $625,000, but only $50,000 a transfer was actually made.
We'll talk a little more about that later.
Okay.
We have a slide on the Waterfront Balance.
Okay.
On this slide, we provided you a 5-year history of the revenues for those major lines that we showed on the previous slide. You can see that they've been slowly increasing year over year, with a dip in the park and recreation charges in the current year due to the pandemic. Now we move on to the major expenditures for the current year. We've isolated about 66% of your total expenditures and other financing uses. The lines that I do want to point out, there were some savings that kind of fell across all of these lines. The largest were street maintenance, sewage treatment, and disposal, mainly due to a sludge removal project and the pandemic as well. There was an overexpended line on the transfers out for the capital projects fund by $68,000, and that was to fund the IT project. As you can see in the other expenditures line in the variance with final budget, there was a savings of about $543,000. In that amount, $230,000 pertain to the contingency line that you have the savings for. The remaining savings was spread across various lines within the general fund.
Yeah, it's harder to isolate the expenditures because your budget contains 20, 30 departments. So it's a little harder to, other than like revenues where we can isolate 4 or 5 major revenues. You did have savings in snow removal. I think we all know that unlike this winter, last winter was a little milder for the village. You had $77,000 of the savings in the parks, which helped offset the revenue that you didn't receive. And then you had about $100,000 in planning and zoning savings too, because I think a lot of projects and a lot of expenditures might have been put on hold due to the basic slowdown over the March to your May period. So, a lot of this is related to the, the pandemic and the closure of municipal offices.
Like we did for the revenues, we also provided a 5-year history of the same lines that we showed. Again, there is an increase year over year with the main drop in 2020. You can see your total expenditure and other financing uses and 2019 was 6.6, and that ended up dropping to 6.2, again, mainly due to the pandemic.
All right, the next slide is our fund balance. This is everybody's favorite page. Kind of says how we're doing. First, we did put down a 5-year history here. And before you get excited with the jump from 2016 to 2020, there was a change that occurred in 2017 where municipalities had to start recording the fund balance of your fire service awards program in your general fund. So what happened is, as you can see in 2017, Melissa footnoted it for you. So your contribution to that fire service award is now classified as a general fund fund balance. You can't spend it because it is restricted only for the fire service awards. But if we talk about your overall fund balance, I think the key to it is that over the past few years, you've been able to kind of reestablish your surplus. So, you were down to 59,000 in 2017, and it's been steadily increasing over the last 3 years. Most boards will have the infamous question of, how much fund balance should I really have? And the answer to that question is, really, it depends on the board. I always try to match it up with the age of my infrastructure, because we all know that the most expensive thing that we face, water, sewer, roads. I always say that the older we are, and Westchester is, an older county because we were developed sooner with our proximity to New York City, that the municipalities probably should be putting a little more away in unassigned because of the possibility of an issue that comes up with your infrastructure. But the village, again, did do a good job of recreating its unassigned fund balance over the last 3 years. So the board really should be commended in the way they're structuring their budgets these last few years. We'll talk about it. Melissa, if you flip forward to the next slide, one of the places that Melissa did indicate is that you had budgeted a transfer from the water fund of approximately $625,000 to the general fund. You only made a $50,000 transfer. The reason that, when we were discussing it with Marcus during the course of the audit, the good thing about that is that the water fund had been down to just having a restricted fund balance. It had no unassigned fund balance. So when the general fund was having a good year and adding to fund balance, there was really no need to transfer that money to the general fund because they were already in a positive position. So the decision was made not to transfer at all because it would have left you in a deficit in the water fund. Instead, you now have a surplus of almost $610,000 with $217,000 being unassigned. So that's a nice increase in the water fund. The transfer in from the water fund over the years has kind of grown a little bit. And I think that it's become a little bit of a reliance of the general fund. You're really only supposed to transfer out costs associated with providing services to the water fund. Under New York state law, you're allowed to have a reasonable profit in the water fund, and that you can transfer out. And you can transfer out the services you provide, that your highway department may provide, that your finance department, that you as a board can allocate some of your time. You should really try to structure that transfer around those items so that it's a realistic coverage of your costs associated with the water district. And again, the fact that water pipes, we all know one break could cost $100,000. Your $217,000 fund balance is great to have because, goodness, seems like there's always an emergency. Something always happens in the springtime and you dig up those roads, and now you have some money put aside to take care of it. You also have this $392,000 worth of restricted money for repairs. I believe during the course of the audit, I think Marcus and your attorney were going to try to research exactly when it was established and the exact purpose for it, because it's been there for a long time. And if you could free that up or some portion of it up to put in the assigned fund balance, I keep calling it unassigned, but your free fund balance for the water fund, that would be great for you to have so that you use it in case of need.
And Chris, if I may say, I got to thank Chris and Melissa. they were able to find, Melissa was able and Chris was able to find the original resolution when that restriction was created. It was restricted for repairs. And Chris makes a good point. We can always, if we have a fund balance, we can keep that over for repairs instead of keeping it assigned. But we can have that discussion in the future, and we can just look at the original resolution. We can talk what the board wants to do. But I want to thank Chris and Melissa because I didn't know what it was. They were able to find the minutes in their schedules. Thank you again.
No problem. Did I explain fund balance okay? Do we have any questions on that?
You know, Chris, I do have a few things I want to say.
Sure.
When you're talking about the transfer out of the water fund, that has unfortunately been for the village standard operating procedure even before I got on the board. It seemed to be that's what they did. So, you know, it was just continued on. So I thank you for doing this because now we can do a course correction and make this fund balance healthier. The other thing I wanted to mention is I have always heard, people have always said you should have 20% of your budget for reserve for your fund balance. And I liked how you explained that. It depends on your infrastructure and your infrastructure needs, what you should have in a reserve account for that, the unassigned account in your fund balance. Because, you know, we hear so many times, oh no, the state requires 20%. So
my answer to that always is if you're a school district, the state mandates 4%.
Okay.
And you know, the school budgets are much larger than yours.
Yes.
I know this year they're making an exception. I believe they doubled it to 8% because of the amount of money that was unspent in some of the school budgets due to the pandemic. But they say with the schools, you know, 4%. But then when the state controller comes in and looks at a village, town, county, city, they like to see somewhere between probably 10 and 20%. Okay. Some municipalities go as high as 25. Again, if they have a very old infrastructure, it's probably smart. Mm-hmm. You're also, you know, let's be honest, you have some issues on your horizon coming up with, one of your major taxpayers. So the healthier your fund balance at this point, the better off you are. So, you know, that's why I commend you for building the fund balance, given, you know, all the difficulties you may face in the next few years. And I keep striving to build that. And as far as the water fund goes, I think we had discussions with Marcus and prior to that with Kevin. I think part of the reason that the transfer was made was because, one of your larger users again, was the power plant for water. And I believe just by pure volume, sometimes they generated surpluses. And then, to have that money sitting in sewer fund, the water fund, $500,000, $1 million, I think it was felt that it was better served providing community service. But again, it's really not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that it's to cover costs and to use right.
And let me add another point. As the nuclear plant shuts down, Chris is absolutely correct. That revenue source is going to wither away as well. So that's going to create a more pressure on the overall operations of the water fund as well. So we had a great taxpayer and a water payer. Both of them will be gone this year. So we're going to have to watch both the general fund and the water fund at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's a great reason why you have some fund balance behind in the water fund. Mm-hmm. Again, until you get a handle on what the usage is going to be in the future, the more cushion you may have, the better for you. I know cushion's a bad word, but the more fund balance you have available to handle the issue is the better. The next slide really is just a quick overview of your debt. You can see that you're down to only $450,000 of outstanding bonds at this point in time. All will be paid off by 2026. That's great. I mean, to be able to say in 6 years you could be debt free, that's phenomenal.
And Chris, just add, don't forget, this is
you have some bands outstanding.
Yeah, we got the sewer pump station, 4th Street, and then we got the fire truck as well. So we'll be looking at that as well. We got to make decisions on the board how we're going to fund those and other capital projects. We're planning, I would like to have a capital projects meeting with the village board, set priorities and how funding for those other projects will take place. And then we got to look at that separately. But our debt service is very low, and that's good. But now we got planned to reinvest in our infrastructure.
Right. Okay. And the next page again, you have some outstanding leases. So you've leased some patrol cars, and for your budget purposes, we put in the again 6 years of your principal payments, so that you can see that it's declining every year. But obviously, as these things decline, you need to replace them with new leases. So they basically will balance out over the years. But that's currently your payment schedule through the term of the existing leases. And that's it. I mean, that's your the highlights from the report. If there's anything in the report that Marcus would like me to discuss, I'll be more than happy to.
Chris, we discussed it, and I think being important to discuss also, Nick brought up a couple of years ago about tax stabilization fund, reserve for that. So why don't we discuss a little bit about that and the difficulty on that, and that leads me to my budget that we're going to be discussing later. I actually removed that from the budget. Maybe you could discuss a little bit of that.
Sure.
So the board understands what that is.
Tax stabilization funds are a very good, if you want to say idea, they're great. But the problem with them is that when you create them, they have rules attached to them where it makes it difficult to tap into that money. Again, you're always better off if you have a fund balance policy, written policy, and put the money into unassigned, because then it's there for an emergency. And again, I'm not the expert on tax stabilization funds, but I believe that you have to have a tax increase of more than 5%. There's dollars amount. It can't be used to cover certain items. So there's rules that kind of tie that money and restrict the board's use of that money. So our feeling is usually if you put it into the unassigned and then the board adopt a written fund balance policy that gives you the constraints that you want, but the flexibility you need to operate is, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but you want to constrain people from just using it for the sake of using it, but it also leaves you the freedom to access it in case you have an emergency. So I think you're better off doing a very formal fund balance policy as opposed to trying to increase that tax stabilization fund.
Yeah, I wanted to have that discussion with the board. I agree with you. And Nick, you brought that up. I think it's a great idea. But the fund balance policy, we can say that when you hit a certain percentage of fund balance, anything above that can be used for capital projects as determined by the village board. Also, you can say we're going to use a portion of it as appropriated fund balance to reduce taxes in the next year. So we can have that discussion as well.
Well, I no longer feel that that's an important thing to do. When I brought that up, it was before the plant, before we took the tax loss from Entergy, anticipating that. It was basically a way to, I think we were talking, I had requested that we put $100,000 a year. We did not do that. That would have slightly increased the taxes for a few years and helped to, reduce the large increase we had last year. At this point, even based on that thinking, the ship has sailed because we're already getting our tax hits.
Yep.
And, so anticipation of those tax hits was the reason. The point is well taken as far as the flexibility. There's also a limit to how much you can put in a tax stabilization fund. Right. I forget what percentage is. It's a percentage of your operating budget, I believe.
I think so, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it's also easy for, if things come up, to have to dip into the general fund. So it was a way of making sure that money was there for a specific purpose. There were a couple of advantages, although your point is well taken about having the flexibility. But it's kind of a moot point.
There's also under the new GASB 54, and it's not new anymore, but there's some other classes. GASB 54. It's the Government Accounting Standards Board when they redid fund balance a few years ago. Right. They gave you some other vehicles you can think of other than the formal stabilization fund that, as times improve and you move forward, Marcus can always call me up. There's areas called committed funds. There's other areas other than restricted. that you may be able to utilize to accomplish whatever's in your fund balance policy.
Right.
So you might have some more options open to you than you did a few years ago. That keep your flexibility there for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, and I'm going to say this again, it was we for many, many years in the village, not just my board, but before that, it was business as usual. And we could do business as usual and not change things because the money that was flowing into the village was substantial. But, now things are changing, we have to adjust things. And, I can honestly say this board has addressed a lot of other things over the years that might have been controversial or people weren't happy with, but, we jumped into it to address it. So I think we're going to work going forward on a policy that the audits need to be done by the end of the calendar year, because we close out on May 31st. So I think it would be appropriate to have that audit, finalized, if all goes well, you guys can do it too, by the end of the calendar year. So by the end of December, we should be able to see where we were from the previous financial year. And a fund balance policy, yes, I think that's appropriate. I think that's another policy we need to look at. I'm glad to see we had taken a tough hit, and it was tough for us to pull out of that going back to 2014. So it kind of took us a few years, to come back around out of that. And I'm glad to see that we're in, a more stable position, and going forward, we'll work to increase that fund balance.
That's good.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. Does anybody else have any questions or any comments while we have Chris and Melissa here?
I have one question on the on page 19 of the report that we've got. There's something called OPEB.
Oh, other post-employment benefits.
Yeah, I hate acronyms. So can you explain what that is and why on page 19 other post-employment benefits liability shows a negative $19 million figure? What is that?
All right. Other post-employment benefits is the actuarial value of your health insurance for your retirees into the future. So this is the expected cost that a municipality is going to spend on health insurance from now to the day the employee is not covered, which in polite terms is the day they pass away.
How you feeling, Bob?
Poor Bob. Oh, Lord.
So what happens is that 19 million that you're looking at is only recorded on what's known as the government-wide financials.
Okay.
You have two sets of financials. The government-wide is what is supposed to convert a municipality to full accrual, but the ones behind the footnotes, like back by page 60 or 70, are the ones that match your budget that you adopt.
Okay.
So what happens is you're on a pay-as-you-go basis with these health insurance premiums. You get a bill from NISHIP, you pay the bill, it covers the retirees, and you're done. Currently in New York State, there's no vehicle to put any money aside to pay this liability because it would have to be in a trust fund. And the state has not established a trust like they do with your pension, where you pay in the actuarial value.
Okay. All right. And so it's not calculated into the annual budget except for that year's annual.
Only for those people that are currently retired.
That's correct.
Right. Oh, okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Wow, that was a scary number to see.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Westchester County was in the billions.
Yeah, I bet. Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Clearing up that mystery. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris and Melissa. Appreciate you taking the time tonight to go over our audit.
We appreciate you taking the time out of your night. I know it's busy. Yeah. And I'd really like to thank Cindy and Marcus for all the assistance they gave us during the audit.
Yes.
It's not a pleasurable time to have somebody looking over your shoulder, and they really did extend themselves for us to try to get everything done. And like you said, we'd love to move it up and move it a little more current before you start your budget process so that you have all these numbers in advance. So with their assistance, I know we probably can do a little better timely next year, and we look forward to meeting with the board next year.
Mayor, if I may, I also want to say Cindy can't get video on, but on behalf of Cindy and myself, it was a pleasure working with Melissa and Chris. They did a great job. It's like a team effort. As they know, Cindy loves to go through the numbers, and she does, and she wants to make everything perfect. And she bothered Melissa a lot, and Melissa was always there, and so was Chris, to answer any question and help us through the process. So I want to thank them. I know Cindy would like to do that too, but I want to thank them very much. You guys were fantastic working with us. There was a lot of cleaning up that we had to get done too, stuff that was in the books for many years, and we finally got that cleaned up as well. So I want to thank you so much.
And if you ever have a question or you need something, remember, I really don't live that far away. I can always come down to a board meeting, and if you just have a question at a workshop. So don't ever think you're bothering me. Just feel free.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Good night.
Marcus, you have really, since you've been here, you have really helped the village get their finances in order and everything done, not business as usual, but bringing us up to the new standards. And, we appreciate what you've done for the village too.
Thank you. And I got to thank Cindy. She's very open to new ways. Cindy never gives you any kind of attitude. She said, I'm here to learn, and she's willing to do anything. So I know she's listening. It's a great team, and for somebody that doesn't have an accounting degree, as far as I know, she knows her debits and credits very well.
Thanks, Cindy. Okay, we're going to move on to Marcus. You're on again. Presentation of the 2021-2022 tentative budget. So
yeah, before we do that, Mayor, a quick little update before we get into that, because I know Bob here, and Bob might want to be bored and leave for the night. I asked Bob to be here because I just want a quick update. My mistake, I couldn't download the pictures. I wanted Bob to give you a big update on the Pavilion bathrooms. It got a little bit more complicated, what's going on. So I want Bob just to explain to you what he started doing and what he found and what he's trying to do. And I got to congratulate him and his guys for what they're doing there. So Bob, want to give the board an update on that real quick.
Well, as you know, we were wanting to spruce up the bathrooms, paint, and modernize a little bit more to throw the touchless technology with the flushometers and water fountains and spigots for the sinks. As we were getting ready to prepare to do that, we noticed a couple of wet spots in the ceiling. Upon investigating those wet spots, we found out a lot of rotten rafters were basically hidden in the past. I've been here for 25 years, and we've never really done any renovations in that room, in either bathroom, I should say. And I always questioned why there was plywood on the ceiling. Well, plywood was put there to cover up the sheetrock that was damaged. So with that being said, I approached Marcus on this and saying this is a job that we can attempt to do ourselves, which we basically ripped the whole roof off, replaced some rafters today, and we have the plywood on. We'll be finishing up the roofing part of the job, hopefully by the end of the week if weather cooperates.
Good.
So that's basically where we're at. So it's being done the right way. Like I said, we had to replace a couple of rafters. And the guys, worked hard the last couple of days to rip it out and beat the rain we got coming tomorrow afternoon to get it covered back up as best we can.
And I know Bob doesn't like to say much, but I got to tell you guys, we don't do roofing that much. There was some specialized equipment and materials they needed, and the guys actually bought their own tools themselves to do it themselves, and that we didn't have to buy new equipment that we're going to use once in a lifetime. So the guys volunteer their own stuff, but they do construction on the side themselves, some of them, as you know, and they bought their own materials to get the job done, and they've been fantastic, but they want to do a good job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we've got a lot of talent there. Good.
Yeah, we also found quite a bit of mold that we were taking care of. So it's been a long time like that, I believe. And, we're going to spruce those bathrooms up. You won't even recognize the bathrooms when you walk into them.
Good. Yeah.
Right.
We have the kids that use it for camp. We have people who rent the pavilion. So you know, we want it to look nice, not only nice, but functional where it's touchless, especially now with the virus and going forward. No, good. Very
It's
good.
well overdue for a new look.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And you know, Bob, it never fails with construction. You start doing construction and the Pandora box just opens up. And until you gut things, that's when you find out what you got underneath. So, but,
You have to go back to youngins and you keep on finding stuff.
Yeah, I know. If you keep looking, you'll find more, I'm sure. So, but no, thank you guys for doing that roof over. That's great. It's going to look good when it's done.
All
Hey,
right.
Bob, are you guys doing paper towels, or are you going to go with the air with the blowers?
We're not going with the blowers. The blowers, I don't believe, are really recommended for the virus because they're just going to blow things around.
You know, I was thinking about that. It makes no sense. It makes no sense because when do you use a blower? After you wash your hands.
Yeah,
You
but
see what
the
I'm
problem
saying?
is
Well, you're breathing. It's in the air.
at that point. Yeah,
You're breathing?
airborne.
You're breathing whether you use
Airborne.
a paper towel or a blower. Anyway, I think that's
You're also-
short. I think it's short-sighted. I think it'd be good to go paperless, but okay. It's okay. The main, all the other great things you're doing are the most important.
Mhm.
That's just a little side detail.
No problem. We can always add that later on if we need to. That's fine. All right. So thank you, Mayor and Board. What I'm going to do tonight is give you a PowerPoint presentation and also go over a little bit of my budget message. So I'm going to share my screen and let's do the presentation first. Okay, everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to give you a summary of where we stand with the budget and then give you some history behind it as well. So next year's budget, as everybody knows, last year we almost had a 40% increase based on mainly on the changes to the pilot payments and as well as some miscalification. Well, how can I say it in a nice way? There were some budget numbers that didn't make sense to me. So I tried to match up the budget numbers with the actuals from prior histories. So last year was more of a catch up as well as a problem with Indian Point closure. So this year we're looking at an 18.97% increase in taxes. That's really 85.26 per thousand increase, or an increase of 374. There's an average tax bill. Increase of $374 for the year, or $31.19 for the month. Now, again, that's a average house assessed about $300,000 in the year. The bad news, as well as probably going down and everything else, is our taxable value last year was pretty even, and this year actually went down. The taxable value that was based on tax search worries and people filing SCARs, which is small claims to reduce their taxes. So if we kept everything equal, we still would have seen like $11,000 decrease in our tax revenue that we have to make up. So that's included in the tax rate increase as well. Overall expenses went up by 5%, and I'll go through most of that reasoning in a minute when we get to the details. Decrease in revenues. The original decrease in revenues was 11.43%, almost 11.5%. Entergy, we lost $833,779 in revenue from Entergy this year. I put in a recoupment of $600,000, assuming that the cessation fund is awarded to us, approved, and funded. I understand it is funded, but we need to get the application approved by the state. I try to reach out to the state a number of times and ask them if I can fill out the application, have them review it, and see if there's any problems as a draft. They refuse to allow me to provide a draft. They said we have to wait for the closure of the plant, apply, and then wait for their review to get back to us. So that will be after our year is adopted. So the $600,000 is a best guess estimate of what we could receive back from the cessation fund. It could be more, it could be less. I'm trying to be conservative in that number. So we recoup some of that money regarding that. The water fund, as we discussed it, there are changes due to energy as well that we're going to be losing revenue from the water fund. So we're looking at a $4.7% increase in that, which is about $28 a year for the average tax bill. Average tax bill is about $600. Everybody's different, but that's the average tax bill, $600. So we're talking about a $14.11 increase on your water bill. Some of the major items we need to discuss is we have when you look at the budget, we almost have no other revenues except for taxes and Indian Point. Everything else is nothing. We have almost no state aid. We have no other forms of revenue coming in. So unless we can create some additional forms of revenue, there'll be additional impact on the taxes. Also, the method for funding future capital projects. I'm working on a 5-year capital project list that I would like to have a meeting with the village board at a workshop to go over all the capital projects at a special meeting. And then hopefully we could discuss what are the priorities of the board and how we're going to fund those projects. Maybe there might be a grant. The wastewater treatment plant is a big one. There are grants available for that if we can get those. But other things, there are no grants. So we got to talk about either funding them over time as a transfer to a capital or taking on more debt to do those projects. But again, that's the village board decision and discussion with the public as well. As the auditor brought up, we have a substantial reliance on the water fund. They're subsidizing the general fund. We need to get away from that reliance. The waterfront should be self-sufficient, just like the general fund. They should operate independently of each other, not relying on each other. So as we see the water revenue going down, it creates more of an impact on the general fund. But if the revenue doesn't come in for the water fund, then the transfer can't happen to the general fund, and then we hit a deficit on the general fund. So that's another issue we got to worry about. And then the continued reduction in taxable values. There are a number of tax certs tax certs are good for 3 years. Some of them are coming up. And with those big corporations that we have in the village, which is a handful, but they're going to be coming back with tax certs that we have to be ready to defend within the next 2 years.
Marcus, are you taking into account the ability to tax the spent fuel?
No, not yet, because we don't know what the value of that's going to be. I'm assuming that if we were able to tax the spent fuel, we might get about $600,000. But again, unless we get a pilot arrangement with whoever the new owner of the properties will be, they can always file a tax cert, and then we can't count on that revenue, but then we have to pay it back. So that's a good question, but it's a very unknown number at this point.
Right, I understand it's an unknown number, but the way that last screen print that you had there would indicate that as if we had, your continued reduction in taxable value. It sounds like that we're not going to get anything from the pods.
Well, because to me, the Indian Point is independent for the pads. I'm talking about regular taxes throughout the village. We got a couple of big manufacturing companies or construction companies in the village, plus individual homes. The reduction we had with people, individual homes filing tax certs and a couple of businesses filing tax certuaries. So if that continues happening, that the tax rateable goes down, if Indian Point comes up, it'll be a great boost, but then it'll be a boost in 1 year, and then people can still file tax certs, so the taxes still come down again. So the way I look at it is, if we get Indian Point, it'll be a great boost 1 year. Unless we get a pilot, then we got a tax cert, and then we can't count on that money.
What about reevaluation of everything?
Reevaluation is difficult. It's difficult to determine what that would mean. It's a redistributing of taxes. We still have to raise, let's say, $3 million, $3.8 million. It's just some people pay more, some people pay less. Unless everybody's undervalued, then we get more revenue. But that's hard to determine. But it's very, very expensive to run through that process.
I think we had looked, or somebody had looked at it, another board. I believe it was $1 million to do a reevaluation. But the thing you have to understand about a reevaluation, it's considered a third. A third of the people stay the same. A third will increase. A third will be lowered. So there's not a net increase unless, as they're going through that, they find that people have done renovations or additions or something that wasn't caught before. That would be your only net increase on that.
And that's a good point, Teresa. And people that have done it, like the town of Greenberg did it for all 6 villages in the town of Greenberg like 2 years ago. And the whole thing with their issue was fairness, that some people are paying more than they should be, and some people paying less than they should be. So they focus on the amount of revenue stayed the same that the municipality received, but a portion of it for each individual changes based on what their house is valued. Okay.
So
Yes.
we'll continue to get a certain amount of tax certiorari claims, and I mean, basically, in effect, it gets passed on to everybody else.
That's correct. That's correct.
You know, so it's probably a very slow way to get into a reevaluation, although I don't suppose that anybody who's undervalued is coming to the village to ask to have their taxes raised.
And Nick, that's a great point, because what happens is you can always lower your taxes, but but the village or the municipality can never increase your taxes. So you say you came to a tax scar, your taxes are reduced. The only thing that we can reevaluate you on is the improvement. So if you add a new kitchen, a new bathroom, a new deck, we can increase your value for that, but we cannot increase the value of the overall house. So you're absolutely right. Unless you did a reevaluation, all you're seeing is continued reduction in assessment, never an increase. Unless you have.
When somebody comes in, I mean, home prices are up pretty high right now. When people come in, though, there's no assessment of that house based on comparables, is there?
No, that's illegal in New York State.
It's
Unless you do,
it's illegal.
Welcome neighbor law that you can't when somebody buys the property. So, for example, say somebody bought their house for $50,000 years ago. Now that house sells for $600,000. You cannot assess them at that $600,000 because they're the new owner.
That's correct.
It's called the welcome neighbor law.
That's correct. And the other part, Nick, is when we have a discussion, is interest in condominiums or co-ops. They're assessed about a third of a single family house. So you can have a co-op or a condo that can be worth $600,000, but because it's a condo or co-op, that's considered rental income. So what happens is you have to anticipate what that square footage will be as rent. So normally condominiums and co-ops, they wind up paying a third of what a single family house would be. So that's another little caveat in New York state law.
Hasn't there been a movement to correct that in the, I don't know if it's in local laws or in New York state law, but I know that's come up many times, and it's basically, it's considered to be an inequality. You know, if you own the building as a condo, you know, you're
Correct.
still, if you have kids, you're still using the school system, you're still using the utilities and so forth.
Correct.
You know,
It's been introduced a number of times. In fact, it was introduced as part of reevaluations as well. But the associations for condominiums and co-ops have lobbied against it, so it's never gone any further. Now, what you could do as reevaluation, there's the thing called a homestead and a non-homestead tax. The difference between homestead and non-homestead, for example, is that you apportion your taxes. Let's say a non-homestead is commercial sites, which including apartment buildings and commercial buildings. Homestead is single-family homes. And you apportion your taxes. You say 60% is coming from commercial, 40% is coming from residential. When you do your taxes, whatever the tax rate increase, the commercial part continue to have to pay the 60%. And the residential pays the 40%. So condominiums and co-ops have been considered that portion of it. So they do pay a higher percentage than the single family home. But again, that's been contested as well, because when we come back to the municipalities to vote on it, most board members have decided not to use the homestead and non-homestead. Like if you go to Florida or Connecticut, if you'll see homestead and non-homestead, New York is very hard to pass that law.
So you keep that allocation of 60-40, for example, regardless of, and you spread the tax rate, the tax levy increase proportionately to those systems.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. So that's
Mark,
a little bit of, yes.
Just on the wording here, your second and third lines where you refer to the tax rate increase of assessed value and the increase of 374, that's based on the average assessment?
Correct.
Okay.
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 Good. Next is just to show you what we just talked about, the taxable assessed values. You can see it's been a substantial increase. In 16 and 17, we popped up a little bit, as you can see, coming down again. And now we're heading back again in the last year. So something we have to be concerned about, and something we got to look at how we can maybe reverse this in the future. Next is the percentage tax rate changes over the last couple of years. As you can see in 6 and 7, I think you had over 100% increase in the tax rate.
Because Entergy had bought the plants. It went from Con Ed. I believe that's what happened in 2006. And yeah, it was not a good time.
Yeah. So that was a big increase.
Let me point something out. It's percentages.
Taxes
are
not
so
dollars.
much higher now that the dollar value of the 40% increase last year is probably bigger than the dollar value of the 100% increase in 06, 07.
Yep, that's right.
Look those numbers up. Remember, taxes were, when I moved to here, my village taxes were like $300 a year.
Yep, good point.
So the doubling back then was probably a dollar amount. I don't know this for sure, but I bet you last year's 40% increase was a larger dollar amount than that
year.
Increase.
Yeah, good point.
How many years ago is it too? 2006. Yeah. Now we're 2000.
Yeah. Taxes were so much lower.
Yeah.
That's it. It's percentages.
Was it the 100% increase the time when, because of the way the pilot was arranged with them? And
yes.
It jumped up like that. The board at that time in 2006, 2007, they were forced to put it up like that because they weren't getting the revenue.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's when the pilot was initiated.
Okay, perfect. Next, just to give some details of the increase of expenses, we had an increase of overall expenses, increase of expenses, $364,000. The major part of the increase was, and there's more detail in my budget message. If anybody refers to that, I got a lot more detail. I got changes, anything of $5,000 or more. That I included that, but I want to focus on some of the major increases. Contingency increased. That was mainly due to personnel changes that I can discuss in the executive session. I can't discuss it here, but most of the liabilities that we have to pay for the future for some of the employees. We had an increase in building personnel. The police salary increases, that was due to the union negotiated increase we had. The building personnel decrease, that was because we have a person retiring. So what happens is that the person who's retiring is a much higher salary. And I actually put in the person be hired at the base salary that we have as part of our new union contract. So that was a substantial savings there. So that's want to make sure you understand that was a decrease. Then we have a increase in building. We have an increase in wastewater treatment. That's our sewer treatment plant. The good news is we did have some decrease in retirement and health insurance benefits, which I haven't seen this probably in my whole career, due to some of the changes in the retirement system that the New York State retirement did, but they finally caught up. Your overtime, some of your overtime is limited, how much can be added to your retirement. We have to retire older, and also people have to contribute more time, more money into it. So that way we saw actually a reduction in the retirement benefits. So I think that's going to balance out one time in the near future, and then we'll see slight increases, but we actually saw a pretty good decrease on that. And the medical contributions went down a little bit, which is very good. That's because the health insurance contribution that we have to do to night shift, the rates actually came down a little bit, which is very good news. This here just shows you where as a taxpayer, I'd like to know where my money's going. So here it gives you a little summary of the major categories of the village. So you have public safety, general government support, transfers. That's for the capital fund for the paving. Debt service, as you can see, our debt service is good. It's 2%. That's a very good amount of it. Benefits is 24%. Home and community, that includes your garbage collection, that's in there, your sewer, that's in there. Recreation, a small percentage. So overall, it's pretty broken up pretty well. Next is actually, you can see what the majority of your taxes go to. Between personnel and benefits, as you can see, that's the majority of what your taxes go to. We provide a service. Most municipalities provide service. So, of course, your heavy hit is your benefits and your personnel. Contractual, a lot of that is uncontrollable. You can't control it. It's your gas, your salt, your maintenance of buildings. We have a very, very small percentage of our budget that we can actually control when you look at the actual details of the budget. Again, just public safety. So public safety by itself is the building department, the fire department, and the police department. As you can see, that's the percentage how that public safety is broken up.
Oh, fancy graphics.
Oh, you like that one? Huh? I like that one. That's my favorite too. Next is police services, how that's broken up. As you can see, the personnel cost is 57% of police department. The benefits is 35%. So you can see of the police department, only 6% is contractual. And when you look at the details on contractual, that's very limited. You have contracts you have to do regarding the 911 system or the police software applications, ammunition, uniforms. So a lot. So there's not much you can cut. Our budget is very bare bones, but you can see how much is spent on the police department, how it goes. And a little footnote on the bottom, the police department is about 19% of the overall budget, just one department. So to give you an example of what that means to us. So what I tried to do here is, the next one is wastewater. We are one of the only communities that I know of that have our own sewer treatment plant. So just showing you how the expenses go there. And that's interesting, as you can see that one, your personnel cost is 22%. Your contractual is 62%. So sludge removal, maintenance of the equipment, that's the highest percentage that goes there. So that's interesting. The police is heavy loaded with personnel and expenses. On the sewer treatment plant, it's all mostly contractual and contracts that we have to do to keep the operations of the plant running. So giving I'm trying to do a comparison of the two.
Question on that: does the
Sure.
personnel on that include the independent contractor that
No.
consults with?
No,
So
that's
on.
a consultant. That's part of contractual, correct? Which
Gotcha.
it gives you a good example. That's very hard. We can't operate without that consultant at the same time.
Gotcha.
Next in medical contribution, as you can see, it was constantly going up. The last 2 years is pretty flat, and we actually had a little decrease. So it's good to see that. It shows you a good trend, and hopefully that trend continues to stay in balance at that number or coming down a little bit. Retirement, as you can see, between 2010 to 2014, there was a big jump. It leveled off. The 2021 was the budget, and again, that was based on the rates that were given to me, and based on because they give you a guess a couple months in advance, but then the actual bill comes in later. So I actually see a reduction coming in the tentative 21-22 year because they did better in the market. They're on a 5-year lag. That's why I want to make sure everybody understands this. So when they give you the rate for this year is based on actuary information from 5 years ago. So if the market does the good 4 or 5 years ago, then you see the benefit in this year. So we see that coming down for next year. I don't know what's going to happen the year after that, but we still don't understand what the impacts of COVID is going to be on that as well, on the municipalities, but we'll know more probably hopefully next year. So on the revenue side, we saw a decrease in overall revenues by $231,000. That includes the $830,000 we lost from energy, plus the $600,000. As you can see, I broke that up. So we lost $599,253 from the pilot payment. Next year, we lose $1.7 million from the pilot payment because it's done. We also have an agreement with Indian Point regarding the treatment of the sewage. That will, the infrastructure. That's 135. The 135, 196 is the infrastructure. Teresa did a great job negotiating with Entergy to pay us the additional $135,000. Originally, this fiscal year that we're in right now, we would have lost 135,000. Teresa at the last minute was able to negotiate with Entergy to give us the 135,000. So we got that this year. Next year we lose all of it. So there's no more infrastructure next year because the pilot and all the payments end. So they're gonna lose $135,000 on the agreement we have for infrastructure. We also have traffic control with Entergy. They actually reimburse us for the police officers' overtime. So we're going to lose that $35,000. And then the next one is the sewer flow. They actually pay us since they're a pilot, they're tax exempt. They're not part of the overall taxes. They don't pay as part of the sewer in the general fund. So we're going to lose $64,000 from the agreement from the sewer flow as well. So that was $833,000 total that we lost. I put in $600,000 for the cessation fund, hoping that we get approved and that gets granted to us. So that's what in there as well. So, but like I said, next year we are going to lose about 1.7 million, and hopefully the cessation fund will kick in most of that back. And we don't know what the impacts are going to be because I'm still waiting for them to approve, hopefully review and approve my proposal when I get it up to Entergy. But that's the majority loss in our revenue. This flow, it just to show you what the major revenues are. As you can see, the pilot is as we all know, the pilot is the biggest form of revenue that the village receives. The Indian Point, that's the infrastructure money I just talked about. You can see sales tax. We were lucky in sales tax, but we haven't seen a big reduction in sales tax, which is good. So that's pretty level on that. Stated is almost not existent, and the mortgage tax. So, like I said, without the pilot, there's almost no additional revenue to cover expenses. We talked a little bit about this when the orders were brought up, the transfer of funds from the water fund to the general fund. Normally, in my experience as well as the auditor said, you reimburse the general fund for the services provided to the water fund by the general fund. So a little bit of people's salary goes in there, any work done by the general fund for the water fund. Normally, you just don't give money from the water fund to the general fund. So we need to reduce this over time, but then we have the impact of the loss of the pilot. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but that's something we have to work on in the next couple of future years to see if we can reduce that dependence on the water fund.
So we did already this past year because it was only a $50,000 transfer. So
correct.
We've started that trend.
Exactly right. And hopefully we'll continue that in the next couple of years. Correct. So this here is just a average tax bill, how much your tax bill is distributed between the town, the school, and the county tax. So the village's portion of the overall taxes at this point is about 27% compared to your county tax, your town tax, and your school tax. Just to give you a reliance on that so you can see what that means. Mm-hmm. And this is like the average tax bill that gets paid out. So as you can see, the school is the majority. We all know that. The village is about $2,300. That's with the increase we're talking about. And then the current town tax and the current county tax, which actually goes up next, will go up in April when you get those bills. But I'm comparing our proposed increase to the current taxes. So we're a year behind the school and the county, but they give you a comparison on that. Mm-hmm. This here just shows you the actual operations and the results of each year. So the green line is your dollars. So every time your green line is above your red line, that means you had a surplus. Your red line is above your green line. That means you had a deficit that year. So you can see in the last couple of years, as Chris, our auditor expressed, our green line is above the red line, which is good. And that's what we increase our fund balance a little bit. So it shows you the trends of what our revenue and expenses are actual for the last couple of years. As we discussed, Teresa brought up when we have talked to the auditors regarding how much fund balance we should have. My discussion with Moody's, Standard & Poor's, as well as our financial advisors, they always say there's a total fund balance and unassigned fund balance. So what I'm showing here is it looks like the pink line, that's total fund balance. Everybody's telling me we should be about 20% total fund balance. So you can see where we are from that. The black line is 10%, which is the unassigned fund balance. As you can see, 15 and 16 we were there, but that was that one-time hit revenue that we received. All the other years we're heading in the right direction, and we're just hitting that black line now, which is a positive trend that we try to continue to get around that black line, which also helps us if we do go to debt. For the day when you go to debt and they look at your fund balance, they say you're stable, and hopefully we get better interest rates if we go out to debt. And also, it just helps us with any kind of operations that we need to do. We have money set aside in case there's an emergency. We have cash that we can pay for any type of emergency we need to have. So that's your overall fund balance, where we stand. And that's it on that. So what I like to...
We're still going to have the, this is just the first blush of our budget, but we do have a public hearing coming on April 7th, where we're going to have you re-go through the budget again, Marcus.
Sure, no problem. And if you can still see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Hopefully this is going to be out there too. The board has received it. It'll be out there for the public as well. It's my budget message, which actually gives you a lot more details than my presentation. And I talk about the assessment, the expenses. This is the more detail of the expenses. And they do a $5,000 with a brief explanation. So people at the leisure can actually read through this if they like to, and see how the money's been, how the money's appropriated to be expended or received in the next year. And after that, you'll see the actual details of every single line item, revenues, expenses, that people can review and provide any responses for. Okay, that was my little presentation for everybody.
Thank you, Marcus. It was very informative. It's really good.
Thank you. I try.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, Marcus. Very good.
Thank you.
Good job.
Does anybody have any questions? Any comments on this? And Cindy, I don't think your mic is working. I don't know if there's anybody out there, but like I did mention, this is the first blush, and then we're going to have the April 7th is going to be the public hearing on that.
Correct.
So people also have the opportunity to ask or make comments at that time also.
Yeah, I'll have this presentation and all the budget and everything put on the website tomorrow. So that way the public have some time to review before the public hearing.
Just wondering one thing, the $600K cessation fund money that you estimated, I know you said you were being conservative. When will we actually know? When would...
according to the state, the plant, if it's not delayed, that's the other problem too. As soon as the plant is officially closed, the state has to confirm that the plant is closed, at which time we can apply. So assuming the plant is closed on April 30th, we can apply in May. They review it. If they approve it, they say that we'll get payment in September or October of this year.
And whether that is an accurate amount, we won't find out until that time also?
That's correct.
Yeah. And when they say closed, means stop operating, which is this April.
That's correct.
As opposed to all fuel in dry casks or anything like that. Just stop operating. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you.
Of course. Okay. So if that's good, we can. Teresa, want to move forward to...
Marcus, I just want to interrupt you, and I apologize, sure. But we have the building inspectors on,
yes,
and I have to apologize to them. I mean, if they want to stay on after this, but could we get to what we're going to be talking about with them? So they
sure, that's next.
Yep. We should have done that before our budget thing, and if they want to stay on, fine. But
yeah, no problem. We can do that quick. As we discussed at the a couple of workshops, the building department is going through all the fees, and they compared it to other neighboring municipalities as well as other municipalities to see what our fee structure was compared to everybody else's. So they presented the board with a pretty good detailed list of the fees. And what I did is highlighted every section that would talk about some changes. Some have additional fees. Some is just a process to clean it up. They've do their research. They found a lot of lacking of information and backup that we needed, as well as a fee that's attributed to it, because we also want to recoup the cost that the taxpayers are paying for these options. So everybody has a list, and my hopes are that at the workshop, just to answer any of your questions, and maybe at a future meeting, we can actually discuss approving these fees if that's what the board would like to consider. And Brian and Peter are here to answer any questions specifically on any fees on the list that you have.
I think what was important to us, because, you know, as I've said, you know, things hadn't changed for years, and we try to address things as we're going along, and as something happens, we try to address it at that point. But we wanted to make sure we were up to speed. You know, it wasn't from 1980, some of the fees, 1990. You know, we're current with what the times are and what other communities are getting for their fees. So I thank you. It was a lot. I'm sure it was a lot of work, Brian and Peter. I'm sure it was a lot of research to do that, but, you know, we appreciate that, of course.
Marcus, this was very hard to read online, and I printed it out, and it's even worse. It's like, you know, I'm trying to use my phone to magnify it, and it's kind of, is there some way you could print that out in larger?
Oh yeah, I can print out a larger paper, absolutely.
Because I you know, having trouble reading this.
So you can't open up on your computer and zoom in on it?
Well, when I open it, it comes up, but there's no magnification thing.
Oh, that's strange. Okay. All right, no problem.
Yeah.
Could you reprint
I don't know. I have
that
an older
for
computer.
all the board
Maybe
members?
that's it. I don't know.
So I'll print it out like 11 by 17 or something like that to make it bigger. That's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, how about 24 by 36? Am I the only one? Were you guys able to, Rich?
You're the only one.
No, I didn't get it. I think, you know, maybe
it was it was sort of
in your packet.
Yeah.
Oh, it was in the packet?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Well, it was in the packet that was emailed.
Correct.
Where, but most of the stuff in there I could read, but this, when I went through, I couldn't read it.
I'm sorry, guys. I wish I would have known that. I would have printed out a little earlier, because I want to, you know, be able to address any of your concerns, and with Brian and Peter here. So,
well, I get the gist of it,
okay.
and but I'm having trouble really getting all the details here.
Okay.
I can read it.
So so Teresa, do you want to just bring it up at the next meeting then again, just to have that? What if anybody can email Peter or Brian with any specific questions before next meeting? At least I'll move the process a little forward, and I'll print it out, make sure it gets delivered. But if there's any specific questions, it'll be nice to get those to Brian or Peter as early as possible, and maybe we can move this. Whatever we can move forward.
Sure, absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do they have any other? They have any comments on this while they're on with us?
Brian, Peter, any specific ones that you want to discuss or bring up?
If it can't be read, there's no point. Everybody should be on the same page.
Okay. Correct. Thank you.
Right.
All right. Is there any other items that they need to be on for, or is there anything you would like to mention to the board while you're on?
The Brian and Peter have been doing a lot of cleaning up, a lot of filing. It's been a little bit messed up. They've been trying to catch up with everything. We've gotten a lot of complaints that they're following up on constantly. So, you know, trying to do the best job they can right now, and trying to clean up, and hopefully we get a handle on everything. So I would have thanked these guys. They've been on the ball on everything that's going on.
Yeah, and Brian, Peter, I want to apologize that we made you sit through all that boring budget stuff.
Okay, I learned a lot.
To get to this and not be as productive as I would have liked, and I'm sure as you would have liked. So apologies.
Okay, that's great. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right. So any questions, please get it to Brian and Peter before the next meeting. Maybe we can move this forward. Okay.
Okay. So we'll put that on for the next workshop, Marcus.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And Brian and Peter, we'll put you on right at the beginning of it. So, and who knows, by then there might be other items to discuss with you.
Okay. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys. Okay. Good night.
Bye for now.
Okay. Discussion of recodification.
Before we go to that, can we talk about the just to give you an update on the water leak that we have? I know we've been going back and forth, and we have a substantial water leak. The water leak has been shut down. They're working on fixing the leak. We were able to bypass the location of the water, so the complex still has water, but due to some of the work that's been done, and not realizing the engineering costs that's attributed to that. What I would like to do, we talked about the water reserve that we have for repairs. So what I would like to do, the board to consider at the next public meeting, is to authorize a transfer of $70,000 from that reserve to cover the cost of the repair. I gave you an itemized list of the repair. The contractor cost is about $35,000. The meter pit and related supplies for that is about $10,000. Engineering is $15,000. We have some attorney fees that we're going back and forth about $5,000, and I put $5,000 for contingency in case we need it. I don't think we will, but I would like to. We have the money in that reserve account anyway. That's been sitting there for probably 10 years, 15 years. That has never been used. So I would like to use that so we have the money available. So if it's okay with the board, we can put on the agenda for approving of that transfer.
Well, we need the money to do that. So, yeah, it was a substantial water leak, and talking about infrastructure, older infrastructure and thing, and that happened to be one of them. All right. So the agenda for the April 6th meeting, because I just want to mention to everyone, the April 6th meeting is not just going to be the organizational meeting. And I mentioned that last month because you have so much going on that we have to also have a meeting that evening.
We have to
put it on, and then, with the explanation, and then we'll put it up for a vote, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, right. And the new board members are going to need a packet to be able to review everything that's on the agenda, because for obvious reasons.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, what is, so that was the transfer of the water funds, also reserve account to capital project. We, all right, do you want to discuss that more at the budget, during the budget hearing?
No, I think that could be a separate motion just to carry that on. I'll provide a memo to the whole board, including the new two board members, how we got here, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Marcus, we were discussing with the auditors, all the numbers were based on the end of the last fiscal year, correct?
That's correct.
Is there anything drastically different one way or the other at the moment, based on we're almost 1 year down the line since then? Or we're pretty much, a little bit plus or minus from there?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good this year. The good news, even though it had a bad winter, we're actually still winning budget for snow removal. Bob has been doing a good job controlling expenses. I think most of the departments are doing a great job. There's nothing out of the ordinary except for the pavilion work that we're doing, but we have money set aside for repairs. So I think we're in a pretty good shape.
Don't speak too soon about the snow, right, Bob? It's March. All kinds of things can happen in March, crazy March. So don't speak too soon yet. I've seen it snow in April too, so.
Okay, next is the recodification. I provided the board with a estimate cost to do the recodification. As we've been noticing, there's a lot of confusion in the code. General code publishers who actually produces our code actually provide services to municipalities that review the code, see what's the inconsistencies or conflicts, and also looks at other municipalities and then come back with recommendations that, well, you don't have this. Like, for example, outside dining. They might have section of outside dining that they can provide us with examples as far as look at any conflicts in the code and come back with a overall summary that's reviewed by the board and the staff, and then you approve one gigantic resolution that adopts all the code modifications. But that's after a big public process that the board goes through. So gave you the proposal, want to discuss it more, or whatever you guys want to do. I can have them come down to a meeting and answer any questions as well, whatever you guys want to do.
What are we talking about money? How much it costing?
It was about, I gave you the proposal. Hold on a second. I think it was like 11,000, something like that.
Yeah, it's around 12,000 from what I remember.
Yeah, $11,150.
Okay.
Well, these are some things we really, need to address. It's, this is like one of those things, like I said before, business as usual. Things just went on and on and on. And, slowly we've been addressing different things as we've been going along. As things come up, we address them. So this is another one of those.
And I know if Stephanie was here, she will highly recommend, I think she will highly recommend as well as I do that we do consider it. But like I said, I can have them come in and answer any questions if you wish, or if you want to email me questions or have further discussions, whatever the board wants to do. I'm just trying to give you tools that we can use to help the village move forward.
Marcus?
Oh, Stephanie!
I've been here for hours, by the way.
Oh my God, Stephanie, how are you?
You did a fabulous job on your budget, I have to say.
Thank you.
I've been here like 11 years, and I think that's the best I've seen.
Yeah.
Thank
you. So in any event, with the codification, I personally would like it if they would jump on a Zoom with us. I mean, I think it's necessary, but I personally have some questions for them. So if everybody is okay, otherwise I'll just call them on my own.
No.
I'd like to be part of that Zoom too. And
that might have to be a special meeting too.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's we have to do it. I mean, there's a lot of outdated things. This comes up constantly. Obviously, I was on the zoning board for 10 years before here, so I'm probably a little bit more focused on that than some of the other people. But I think we need to do it. I think we need to budget for it.
Yeah.
But we should have a meeting with them first and discuss it a little further. But I think we need to do it.
So do I.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll talk to Teresa, see what meeting she would like to have them come in, and I'll reach out to them and I'll have them come to a meeting. No problem at all.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, staff.
Sure.
One of the discussions we had in the past too is the idea of redoing the master plan. I don't know if that's a priority of the board as well. Just bring it up as something you want to discuss proposals, or not discuss it at all. Just again,
it needs to be done. It needs to be done.
And that's something that has to be discussed, especially doing the LWRP, the 240 acres of the Entergy property, like where are we going here? So the LWRP was helpful. But, I think, for the future, I really think that needs to be addressed. So.
Do you want to set up a mayor? Do you want to set up a little subcommittee to have discussion with consultants to talk about that? Or do you want all the consultants to come to a meeting and then have all of them at a meeting, whatever you prefer?
Yeah, I think we need to maybe set up a special meeting for that so that the board can discuss, what direction they want to go with that.
Okay.
So we got a few special meetings to set up. A lot going on here. There's always something going on. Okay, great. Thanks, Mark.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Next is the welcome signs. I know Bob and Nick have some discussions about signs, and want to see. I know Bob is heads up and always trying to do and move forward and get projects done. So Bob just needs to find out, what direction you guys want to go in, and determine, what the board wants, and that way he can order materials and get it done.
Okay, we need to get I'd like to be involved, a few board members together and meet over there. But remember, Blakely Avenue is going to be getting done, running the gas line. I got to put out the code red yet. Running the gas line through Blakely Avenue, and the one by Blakely Avenue that we're going to put there the gas line is going to be connected there. So I'd kind of like to find out from Con Ed exactly, like, where is the connection? Where is it going to be? So at least we have an idea where to put that one. Plus, we also have to look at the one across from the church. We have to see if that's our right of way. Because somebody purchased that property where we have the entrance across from the church. Somebody purchased that property. So we need to see, is that on our property? Is that in our right of way? Before we do anything, we have to find out.
Bob, you have any idea about that property?
The end of Blakely Avenue, I know that's somewhere in the general area is where they're going to finish up that gas line.
Correct.
The one across from the school and the church there, it's right on the cusp of the borderline of the new owner and our right of way. There is a stake in the ground there.
Okay.
Right by
I'm looking at the GIS mapping site right now, and there's basically the property line is very close to the edge of the street there. Generally, you have that 8 feet or so from the curb to the property line as the village right of way. And I don't know if this is accurate or not, but according to what I'm looking at here, the streets and the property line are almost exactly the same. That's according to GIS mapping. Don't know how accurate that is. We have to pull a survey or something.
Yeah, it's not always accurate.
There is a water pit there, right, Bob?
It looks like the owner of that property did do a survey because there were some stakes up there, and there's some marks right next to our water pits there.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping the lines on the GIS mapping aren't accurate, but the other thing is, the one that we're looking at putting up by by Blakely, we're going to have a nice little thing there, and it says "Welcome to the Village," but I think the first thing you see is that corner house that has those old metal billboard things on there on the front. And I'm wondering if we could have them remove those just so that when you say welcome to the Buchanan, you're not looking at rubble. I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying in general, I'd almost rather put it up by Tate because, if your first thing that you see when you come in the village is unappealing, I don't know. I'd rather,
Well,
do you know what I'm saying? At the corner house there, the whatever that multifamily there, they had some like metal billboards up over the roof there.
Yep.
And I don't think they use them anymore. Maybe we can ask them to take that down. It might make it look a little nicer. And we can't require them to take it down, I don't think, can we?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I could ask them.
The thought was moving it from where it is now, because after they put the gas line and all that infrastructure over there where we have it now, it just, that doesn't look good there either. It's all.
No, I think that what this on Blakely is a better location. I'm just thinking it'd be nice if we can clean it up a little over there.
Sure. All right.
We started with the parking thing does a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think what Bob wanted to find out was he has material available, if that's the material you guys want to use and what size you want to do. So that way he can get some ideas together.
The Unilock, we talked about this before, in front of the highway building. I think it looks fine. I think that would be great. If, Teresa's, you were thinking maybe some other stone or something, but I mean, for me, the Unilock works, and then you don't have to put in footings, which is the biggest part of the cost.
True. All right. Why don't we meet with Bob one day and actually do a visual at the site so we have idea of what we're doing?
Sure.
Yeah, we need to kind of plan the size of the sign and figure out the size and shape of the raised bed. Come up, make a sketch up or something.
Okay. Good. Game plan. Good.
Okay. The next item was probably the last item. This was the discussion we had many months ago regarding the truck traffic on Blakely, Teresa.
Yes.
And I know we've had discussion about doing it the right way and having the traffic engineer looked at it. So I gave you guys a proposal for a traffic engineer that can work with signage, with DOT, proper turning radius coming out of Greentown Road. So you got the proposal there. It's $1,500 to look at the roadway network, and then signing and planning with DOT and working that out is $2,800. So, we're talking about, $4,000 to do all the work to actually make sure the truck traffic has the right turn. Like, we're going to force the trucks to make a right-hand turn, but I know the owner of those property saying that was too dangerous. We have a traffic engineer that has to determine if it is dangerous, and if it is, how do we mitigate that danger to make the trucks turn the right way and protect the village from any kind of lawsuits. So something you want to consider. I can have them come to a Zoom meeting as well, answer any questions if you like, whatever you guys want.
You know what? Let's look at the calendar for April, and because obviously we need some special meetings, and we'll do that.
Yep, he'll be happy to come and answer any question from the board as well.
All right.
Okay, and the last item, just to let the board know, as part of the transfer from Entergy to Holtec, we do have a sewer agreement that we just discussed as part of the budget that we're losing in sewer flow. It has to be transferred. So we're having George Palmer review that agreement, just like we did with the school district, to make sure we're protecting the village. Even though the usage will probably be not as much as we have with Entergy, but there will be flow coming out of that property as part of decommissioning. So I just want to let you know they are asking for us to agree to the transfer, but George is reviewing it, and they will provide him with some comments. Stephanie reviewed as well, and then hopefully we'll have a proposal back to the village board after everybody looks at the comments.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Any comments from the board? Any comments? Cindy, I don't know if there's anyone. Is there any raised hands, Marcus?
In fact, there's no attendees at all.
Okay.
I have one thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Cindy says no comments. She just texted me.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
If I may, one thing, the little update on the logo, the village seal redesign. I have I've been communicating with an art teacher at Hendrick Hudson High School, and she seems to be involved with some of the more talented students that do, shows. I don't know, some of you may know that they would do, prior to this year, they did an annual show at the Hendrick Hudson Library, and so she's involved, and she's very interested and loves the idea. And I have a Zoom meeting with her tomorrow to kind of try to get some ideas and ask her a few questions, get her opinion on some things. One thing I'm wondering from the board's point of view is if we do a contest, what the prize would be.
Dinner with you.
What a prize.
Dinner with me, and that's a punishment. but Cheech is making linguine and clam sauce right now. Maybe we could dinner with Cheech. But anyway,
you all know where I live.
Yeah, I know where you live.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I was thinking maybe something, like a cash prize, $500 or something. Maybe the winner gets an iPad.
We could possibly do a gift card because we have events money, so it's not using taxpayer dollars. And I would also like to open it up to village residents, not solely.
Well, no, absolutely. This is not just the high school, and I'm not presenting it like that to her. Okay. I think I want to work out. I think I just value her opinion as far as how long to allow for this, 3 months, 2 months, 6 months. I don't know. I'm not a designer. So I'm just going to discuss this in general with her. And I've made it clear that it'll go out and a flyer will go in the village newsletter. We'll put it on our website. So it's open to residents. Obviously, the high school is the whole town, so it's not it's not just village residents. And maybe put a little flyer, post it in a couple of places, but we're not going to start reaching out to design schools in Manhattan or anything. But
no.
It definitely will involve the town area that the high schools cover.
I think, Nick, something like, whatever you want to go down, money, but what about something in the vein of whatever they come up with, we get it put on, you see these new things now, put on a glass thing or give some sort of a plaque or something along that line.
You mean as a prize?
Yeah, in other words, their art would be put it on something, whether it's
I see.
And it would be something permanent for them, and something look at if they were very talented, that they could use it further on in any kind of a resume or things like that.
Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of we don't know. There's a lot of people in this village. I bet you there's some people there's probably some very talented people that might even be professional graphic designers in the village. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
But I think, I would love to see it come out of the high school. That would just be a special thing. But, and then the other thing is, how do we judge it? I'm thinking that maybe we get a group to go through them all and pick out, get a committee, and they would maybe pick the 5 finalists, and then maybe we could the board could vote from the 5 finalists, or we could put it and let the residents of the village vote, post it online and let people vote for their favorite. So that's as far as from our board, what the prize would be and how the winner is picked would be things I'd love your input on. Meanwhile, I'll discuss that with Miss Nash, who's the art teacher I'll be talking to tomorrow, Jessica Nash.
That last recommendation you had, Nick, wasn't that what New York State did with the new licenses? They put it out there and said, one license had the Statue of Liberty, another one had...
Oh, did they?
Yeah, and they asked for people to vote by a certain date.
So, did they do that? Well, great. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I think it'd be kind of fun to let the village residents vote. But not if we get 30. We're not going to put them all online. Have a committee to winnow it down to 5 or 6.
Yeah, they had whittled it down to 5. They gave you a choice of about 4 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Nick.
Yeah, I like it.
And I think the beautification committee should be involved too, because they put the banners up. So, I think they would be an important group.
Well, you know what? If we put together a committee to pick the winners, we'll make sure that there's 1 or 2 people from the beautification committee.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that'll work. Good. All right. Anything else from any of the board members? Because I just want to talk about our camp. I know Nancy had sent something out today about the registration. Because of COVID, we have to scale down on the spots. So there's 150 spots, but today 135 kids were registered. So there's only 15 spaces available. 1 is kindergarten, 3 first grade, 6 second, 5 third grade, and 4th to 8th is filled. So right now that's what our max is. But let's see what happens yet. The governor and the Department of Health might open up more. But for the first day, basically, it was filled. So.
Teresa, I got one thing before we go into executive session.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to really thank Dwayne and Cheech for working with us. I hate to see you guys go. I think we had a great board. We get along well together. But I really respect all that the 2 of you have done, and I intend to keep very close to you people. And you became good friends, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Rich. That's very kind of you. Thank you. And it's been a pleasure working with all of you as well.
I'd like
Yeah,
to thank you
I want
guys.
to echo that. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being part of this for a bunch of years.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure.
8
And I
years.
want to
right?
thank the both of them, Cheech, Dwayne. You two guys have always been gentlemen. I know we were accused of just, being rubber stamps to me. And I laugh. I just have to laugh at that because we've had some difficult conversations. We've had gone round and round about certain things because we're all passionate about the village. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, everybody nods their heads like a bobblehead. That was not the case, but you were always gentlemen. And I know in your heart, you voted for what you always thought was in the best interest of the village. It never got into politics with you guys. I respect that immensely. And the village was lucky to have you all those years. And I enjoyed working with you. And I wish you nothing but the best and much health and happiness in the years to come. We will all stay in touch.
And thank you, Teresa.
Cheech's idea for the house there on White Street, I'll never forget.
We faced a lot of challenges, guys. We really, and everybody stepped up to the plate. Didn't matter if it was controversial. We stepped up to the plate, made the right decisions. And, we all did the best we could do under difficult circumstances. And yeah.
It's been a pleasure serving you guys. You've been fantastic. And hopefully you stay in touch. You're still residents. I'm always available. Call me anytime. And thank you for hiring me. And I really enjoy working with you guys. It was great.
Thank you, Marcus. I appreciate it.
And you could still come to the meetings. Just raise your hand.
I'm curious. When are we going to have the live ones again?
We'll see because it depends when the governor opens things up again. The Department of Health, there's restrictions, and then we'll see. I actually prefer the live meetings, but at least this was a way for us to do village business during the pandemic. And like I said, it still continues. I lost a good friend of mine a couple of weeks ago from the virus. So it's still out there. It's still active. And, everybody still has to be careful.
But can I say something?
Absolutely.
I want to thank all of you, Teresa, Rich, Nick, Dwayne. You guys have always been, what's the word I'm looking for? I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your support. And, I'm still living here in Buchanan, so we'll see a lot of each other, and stuff. And I wish you guys all the best going forward. I really, really do. And I'm going to miss all you guys. And, it's been a pleasure. I mean, when I first came on, I'm figuring, I'll stay a year, 2 years. My God, 7 years went so quickly, and I also, thank you to the community for their support. That was really, I appreciate that. I thank you kindly. We came up short. It is what it is and life goes on. But, this has been an experience that I will never forget. And I'll say one thing, Nick, I'm not going to miss your bad jokes. I'll tell you that.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Yeah, I will. But thank you all kindly. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
And Cheech, when they ask, like, so what are you going to do? What are you doing, Cheech? Where are you going?
Oh, I'm going to Disney World.
There you go.
He's going to Mar-a-Lago.
That commercial years ago. So what are you going to do? What do you got to say? I'm going to Disney World. So
me and Donnie Boy got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, I just like to say it was a pleasure to serve this village. It was a great experience, and being a village resident for the last 27 years, certainly serving on the board with all of you has been my pleasure. And more importantly, just as we see the village changing and going into very good directions, and certainly the police committee was a demonstration of that. As the chairman of the Democratic Party, which I will still be involved with very heavily going forward, I ain't going nowhere. So anyway, but peace and love to everyone.
Amen to that, Dwayne.
Thank you, guys.
I know. I just want to say one other thing, so I can set the record straight. Peach, we were accused of being related by marriage, so I do want to set the record straight. I guess I've been accused of worse things, but anyhow. So my cousin is married to Cheech's brother,
which makes us nothing.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that understood. Cheech and I have never been related. Who knows, down the road, who knows, but by marriage, we have never been related. My cousin is married to Cheech's brother. So it's not a brother-in-law, cousin-in-law, there's nothing there. So just wanted to set the record straight.
Yes. And Teresa, and everybody know I've had the pleasure of knowing Teresa for probably 40 years.
Yeah. Families.
I don't know if Cindy, if you're still there, thank you for all your help and the office help, and to every employee that I've ever interacted with in the village. You're top shelf, and you do a great service in your dedication to the village. And we're very lucky, as the mayor always says, to be here, and wishing everybody a beautiful Buchanan Day.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Absolutely. And happy Easter to everybody.
Yes, you too, Cheech.
Have a happy Easter. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll all keep in touch.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a small village.
Yes.
I learned that.
Cindy wanted to say, Dwayne and Cheech, Sharon and I will miss you terribly. That's from Cindy.
Same here. Tell Cindy thank you. I will miss you guys terribly as well.
Okay. So any other comments from the board? Anyone? Okay. So I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session over potential litigation.
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great Buchanan Day.
Okay, give me a minute. Give me a few minutes.